Welcome to Author's Tales, where we go beyond the words and into the heart of the storyteller.
Every book holds a story, but beyond the pages lies something even greater: the journey. The long nights, the countless rewrites, the moment when doubt whispers and passion shouts back louder. This is where authors share their truth, the struggles, the breakthroughs, and the moments that made them believe in their story.
If you love a great story or dream of writing your own, you're in the right place.
Because every book has a voice, every author has a tale, and the best stories, they don't just get told, they get lived.
This is Author's Tales, where stories come to life.
Michael, welcome to Author's Tales. My God, I am super excited for today.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about your book, your latest book, and it's Staying Positive in a Negative World. And I'm going to actually put the book up here so everybody can take a better look than me holding it. That's the QR code for you to pick up your book. But here's the book that you may want to take a look at, right? I love the sunshine on one person. And that's you, right? That's who you are. Not you necessarily, but that's you, the listener, who can have positivity in your world. And I'm so happy that you're here with us, Michael, to share how you even found it.
It's my pleasure.
Yes, sir. So let's talk, and it all starts with your story, right? I think that's one of the most important things that we have to understand. Everybody has a story, but tell us about your story. What is the most important aspect of your story that allowed you to find positivity in your life?
Well, I think it's my beginning. I have a pretty tough beginning. My mom was a heroin addict. My dad
Mm.
left immediately after he found out she was pregnant. My grandparents took me. Thank goodness that they took me.
Mm.
But one of the things that was an issue was I grew up. First thing was extreme poverty. And another thing was my uncles and aunts, they were all abusing drugs and drinking. So I started at a very young age of using drugs. And by the time I was 18 years old, I was completely addicted to cocaine mostly, but anything, alcohol, cocaine. And I just had enough. And about a couple weeks after, and that's a whole different story we don't have time for today, but a couple weeks after being clean, uh, a friend of mine handed me a Zig Ziglar cassette tape. And that
Mm.
one cassette tape, I wore it out. So I wore that thing out. I'd never heard anybody talk like that before. You can be whoever you want to be and become who you want to become.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, one of the things that you did send me was these really cool books about Zig Ziglar. Or the fact that it's a little book of big quotes, right? And the other one is 10 Leadership Virtues for Disruptive Times. And I got to tell you, they are great, quick reads. And not only did you wear out, and I remember cassette tapes back in the day, right? I'll just share with you a link or something of that nature, or even MP3 players. People used to give you like little things, like a little thing to listen to or something. And you also send me this, by the way. Thank you for that. Everything you've sent me. And every time that we get into something that really transforms us, we need to listen to it over and over and over again. So it's the old adage of, man, that's a great idea. I'm glad I thought of it. But meanwhile, you never thought of it. Somebody told you, and somebody told you, and somebody told you, and somebody told you, until eventually you internalized it.
That's right.
Right? Is that what you did with Zig Ziglar?
Yeah, the cassette tape. The main thing was I grew up in a different world that I just didn't hear stuff like that, encouragement. So when I started listening and listening and listening, it seemed like every time I would listen, I was like, man, I didn't hear that the last time I listened. And so Then that led to other cassettes and other books, whether it
Mhm.
be John Maxwell, Tony Robbins back then, Jim Rohn. I could go on, the whole episode of all the
Yeah.
folks that one cassette tape led me to. And like you just said, it's what you put in your mind over and over and over and over, whether it's negative or positive. And
Mhm.
you'll start to become whatever you put in there.
Yeah, I flipped my camera around so you can actually see the book I'm holding up. And in reading your book, you talk about all these different things, your transformation. I even had I was somewhere where I couldn't mark the book, so I flipped a page over so I can remember that part. And so everything in here is really an actionable book that you wrote, because not only is it your life story, but you also talked about the actions that you took. Because right now across the screen it says Michael's story of transformation, but it was not a one day thing. It took many years for it to truly set in.
Hmm.
Talk to us about that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people they see my life. I retired at 54, a millionaire, and they're like, "Wow,
Mm.
look at that high school dropout. You got this crazy story." But if you'll read my book, there was so many ups and downs. I've lost everything I've had twice, not just once,
Wow.
twice. And
Wow.
so I just kept pouring and working hard and believing in the things that would keep me positive and the things that Zig taught, all the principles that it just keep going. So I guess it was year after year of me being hard headed, I guess, learning those lessons over and over and
Mm.
over until hopefully, so I'm 55 now. Hopefully they've
Yeah,
stuck.
there you go. Yeah. So when you think about the challenges that you had along the way, those are moments that you could never take back. Is there one that you would say, if I could, I would take back?
You know, there's a lot of things a lot of mistakes I made. Tons.
Mm.
I've burned bridges. I've I've never intentionally hurt anybody, but obviously I have. But I look back and would I change anything? I don't think so.
Mm.
It's made me who I was today. And so I made a lot of mistakes and but I've learned from each one of them and some of them more than once. Same
Yeah,
mistake.
I'm sure. I love what you just said, Michael, when you talked about I burnt some people, I burnt some bridges, but none of them were intentional.
Mm-mm.
And that just goes to show the kind of person you are. Because listen, I've done the same thing. And if I can, there's people we both have hurt that we don't even know we hurt them
Mm-mm.
because they stayed quiet. I would prefer someone to come up and say something to me, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Absolutely.
you can actually, from your heart say, wow, I did not realize I hurt you. How can I make it up to you? What are your
Absolutely.
thoughts on that? Yeah, absolutely. It's true. So, Michael, um, you did also send me, I'm gonna hold this up, two cups, right? And your logo is on one of them, right? But you sent me two. Most people would have sent me one, and I'm going to tell you why there's two in my hand, and they're full of coffee. So
Be careful.
mm, I love coffee. So here's one of them, and it says, "When you're stuck on the next thing or the last thing, you miss the now thing." And I'm going to flip it around so people can see that I wasn't just saying it. This is one of your quotes by Michael Woods, and you put that in the cup. And then on the other side, you have your logo, which I think it's a pretty brilliant logo. It's so simple, but yet is your brand. And that's brilliant branding, if you will. Before you say a thing, because I know you're ready to say something, I want to read the next one because each cup is individual. It's so important. And this is the next one, right? If your happiness is linked to things we can't control, we're in for a very stressful life. What an incredible quote again. And look, another beautiful mug. And I got both of them. And guess what? I have coffee. Yum. Mm. Now, did you send me these so I would drink more coffee? Did you know I'm Colombian?
I had no idea you drink 2 cups at once.
I, I can't because then I would really get a spillage if I tried both, unless I had a straw in each one. But um, when I got those, I saw the logo. I was like, "That's cool. Why do you send me two?" Then I flipped it, and I got the message on the other side. So that's one of the things that you talk about in your book is how can you help your fellow human being? And just those two mugs truly represented that for me because you could have sent me one. But you say, each one is a different message. Each one, I want Sifu Rafael to think about something. Because I cannot drink this cup of coffee without reading it. And I'm right handed, right? So when it's right, it's always going to face me. And if I was left handed, it would face the person I'm sitting in front of. So it's
Either
a
way,
great conversation starter. I love this cup. So I am so blessed that you were able to send me both. So let's talk about that aspect of what you do. Um, and then also the other thing I want to touch on is what inspired you when you realized that you've created this incredible life from, like you said, a high school dropout, somebody who was on drugs, cocaine addicted. Wow. Now, I'm going to quickly, it's not about me, it's about you, right? It's about your book. But I had the opportunity to maybe even do drugs myself when I was a kid. I was in high school and I'm sitting in a pizzeria and it's six of us and I'm teaching the guys how to do better diving because I do gymnastics. They're swimmers, right? And we're all friends. And one guy goes, "Hey man, check this out." And he pulls out some cocaine and he goes, "Try it." And he goes, all the other guys are like, "What is that?" They're like, "Oh, it's a little." And he said cocaine. Everybody's like, "Oh, I don't know if I could do that." And he goes, "No, don't you have to do it? You just put it on your mouth and see what it does to you, right?" And I said, a tiny little bit, and I put it like this in my mouth, and it made me numb,
hmm
right? And I said, "Wow, if you ever want to say I did cocaine, that's it. I just put it a little." And I said, "If it does that to my tongue, what's it going to do to my brain? What's it going to do to my body? I don't want that near me." Meanwhile, some of the other guys, they did try it, right? I don't know if they've ever continued, but unfortunately, that kid was arrested not too much later after that. And I'm sure he took down everybody who he was selling to. So,
Probably.
but his dad was also arrested because it was his dad pushing drugs through his kids. So,
Hmm.
drugs can hurt you so much, but
Yes.
you found a way out of it. You got hurt in the process. Talk to us about that if you don't mind.
I watched uh, my family members, my mom, my uncle, tons of my family members get arrested. My aunt died at 38 years old because of drugs and alcohol. My uncle died at 49. I've got story after story. And me watching this, once I pulled myself out of it, I had mentors that were helping me along the way in the grocery business, but they didn't drink, they didn't do drugs. So it was a whole new world that I was exposed to, if that makes sense. So my
Mhm.
mentors became business guys and people that wanted to help each other. And don't get me wrong, there was a couple times I fell in my life through a divorce and turned back to alcohol and drugs, if you'll read in the book, for a very short time because it didn't take long to like, oh, I know where this goes.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I'm so sorry to hear about your aunt at 38. That's so young. She had a full life ahead of her, right? Um, but yeah. So, and I've known some incredible people who did go the drugs when they were kids, and eventually they cleaned up and they're doing incredible things in their lives. And I know that if you didn't find your way and your purpose, you wouldn't be here today with me. We wouldn't even know each other,
Oh,
right?
I would be in prison or dead. That's where I was headed.
Mm, mm. So that's such an incredible message that you're sharing with people. And so here's the next part of what we're going to do. What inspired Michael, which is you, to write this incredible book? And earlier we talked about this book could be like 8,000 pages, but you made it a thin enough book that people can really read through it and stay engaged. And I even suggested, oh my gosh, there's so many lessons in here. You got to write a bunch of different books just to go off of this one. And so what inspired you to write this book?
See, I wish I had this story that I wanted to write this book my whole life and spread this message, but that's just not the case. So I get close to retirement a couple years ago, and my wife asked me, "What is your dream?" And I said, "To be a professional speaker." I've had that dream for a long, long time. And so I go to Toastmasters and I'm talking to people. I go to lunch with a professional speaker, and the first thing he did, he said, "You got to write a book." I said, "Write a book?" I said, "I don't want to write a book. I don't even know how to write a book." And so at the time, I thought about writing a book, like some people do, put a few quotes in there, maybe write your goals down, and I'd have a book, which there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. Well, I was running around the country or a couple states here competing with Toastmasters with a speech called Staying Positive in a Negative World, because that was
Mm.
a message that I truly believed that I needed to spread, because man, I've never seen it so negative. Friends and family, whether it's politics or news or whatever's going on. And then it hit me. I said, "That's the book." And it took me a year
Mm.
and a half. So it become kind of a passion, kind of a just I'm not sure what word to use, but I love it. I love doing it. It was a lot harder than I thought I was going to do, but I poured my heart and soul in that book.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody who says that writing a book is easy is because they're not putting their heart and soul into it, because it should not be an easy task.
That's right.
Yeah, I get so many people reaching out and say, "Hey, write your book in 3 weeks," and I'm like, "No."
No.
So, right? Because there's a lot of effort that you have to put into it. There's a lot of thought, right? A lot of the process is big. Even just if you look at and I'm going to put it on the screen, right? If everybody was just to look at the image, I'm sure you didn't go, "Yep, I got it." It probably took some time, some thought, maybe some sleepless nights, and some thinking. What do I put? How do I make this book stand out? Um, because I love the sunshine around the gentleman, and he's kind of looking up. And everybody's just kind of looking down, and,
Mhm.
and they're shielding themselves, right, from all the negativity. Meanwhile, he's like, "There's no negativity coming my way because I know what's positive." Right? I love the artwork that you created here. Can you talk to us about a little bit about the cover?
Yeah, my publisher and I we've gotten close over that. We're going back and forth. We were going to hire somebody to help us with the cover, and we kept going back and forth, and I was scribbling, and I've got all these sketches and ideas, and my wife was helping me. It was like, to your point, it was hard and it was a long
Mhm,
process. And together, the three of us, my publisher, me, and my wife, we
mm,
all kind of all of a sudden we said, "That's it." And at first, I'll just be honest with you, it was not my favorite cover at first.
really.
But the more I looked at it and the more it came to life, I'm so glad that was the one we come up with. But I can't take credit. There was three of us.
Well, you take partial credit
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it's your story, right? But and for anybody who's listening to us now, if you watch the replay, we want you to pick up this book because it's a book that you can take your phone out, you can click on it, get the QR code. It's going to take you to Amazon. You can buy the book there. Here's the cool thing about this book. Once you read it, I'm going to suggest this, right? And I know for sales is not going to be the best thing, but for impacting another person, either buy 5 books and share it with friends, or if you can't afford more than one, buy that one, but share it. Share
Hmm.
it with somebody. And I'm going to share with you something that I do, Michael. So what I do is once I read a book, not one that's signed by the author, so thank you for signing it, right? But if I buy a book, once I finish reading it, I put my name on it and I put the date on it, and then I pass it to somebody else. And so I make them a promise. I said, listen, I'm giving you this book, right? I need you to do me a favor. If this book impacted you in any way, I want you to pass it on and write your name and put the date you gave it to someone and make them make the same promise, because a good message is worth his weight. So do me a favor. Don't just read it and put it in your shelf. This is a gift that needs to keep giving. What are your thoughts?
That's awesome. A lot of people say if it's a good book, give it away, but they leave it there. I love
Mm.
that. I love of everybody putting their name. You get some ownership of spreading that message. That's awesome. That's a great idea.
But here's what you do. If you click on the QR code and you buy 5 covers, 5 books, keep one, give the other 4 away, but sign it and do that, right? Because I had somebody do it, and it didn't happen to me, it happened to them. And what they did is they gave it out and gave it out, forgot they gave it, because they do it as well. And so I've started a lot of people on this path, right, of giving away a book. And I do it at every event I go to that I host. I give out books. And I'll say, I'm going to sign this. I'm not the author. And this is what I'm going to do. And I raffle them off, right? Somebody who answers something, whatnot. But somebody said to me, they reached out, Sifu, you're not going to believe what happened. I said, what happened? Somebody gifted me the same book I gifted initially. And they opened they're like, oh, they didn't just say I got this book. They said, thank you. They opened it and their name was on top. And then there was a bunch of other names on it. And they said, wow, this is such a gift.
That's awesome.
So they said, do me a favor. I can't take it because I already, my name's number 1. But pass it on to somebody else. But thank you for thinking of me. So if we think about, we're in the age of where people don't read physical books anymore. And that's such a lost art, because there's so much more. We're on computers all the time, all day long, right? And we're going to be on the computer to read another book or a PDF. I rather sit down with a good cup of coffee with a great mug and read a book and highlight it if I need to and take notes on it and then go back and maybe read it again. So for me, it's so advantageous to have a physical book in front of me.
Absolutely.
So you don't only talk about the aspects of you, but you also talk about the mental vitamins. I love this part. You talk about the mental vitamins in your book. What does that mean?
Mineral vitamins are, when you think of vitamins, the first thing you think of is vitamins for your body. I got to take these mineral vitamins or, multivitamins, and I've got to eat the right foods. Well, I believe the vitamins that you put in your mind affect how you feel
Right.
a lot more than the ones you eat. Those are important, the ones you eat.
Right.
But the vitamins are podcasts or books, physical books, or it's, it could even be good music. It's positive stuff going in. One of the things that I think a lot of people are putting in their mind all day is negative stuff. Kind of like, remember when I was a kid, we watched the news from 6 to 6:30 in the evening. That's when we watched it. And it was the same stuff, Seafood. It was wars or going to be a war. There was politicians fighting. That was 35, 40 years ago. Same stuff. But then we went on with our life until the next day at 6 o'clock. And then the negative stuff for about 30 minutes. But now people, if they're not careful, they're putting that stuff in all day long. And that's dangerous because you'll become what you put in there, as we talked about. So go back to the vitamins, whether it be books and songs and podcasts and audibles and just all that positive affirmations, just everything that can go in there. I loved it. And I came up with those vitamins too. I thought, I was like, man, that's a cool thing to say about that stuff.
it is very cool. When I started working in corporate, I came in, low level, and I live in New York City, so I used to have to take the train to work. And I saw all these people reading the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, all these things, and I said, well. And then I saw people reading the New York Post or the Daily News, and I said, there's 4 newspapers. I have a choice to pick. I started with this simple one. I'll get the New York Post. It looks interesting. So I started reading it. Negativity. Once in a while, they would have a nice story about something, positivity, but negativity, maybe the sports and so forth. And then I said, all right, let me try the next newspaper. And I got the same thing. And then I said, what if I just want to know more about finances? Wall Street Journal. That was more my take on things. And then if I wanted to know about world news, I got the New York Times. So there I am between 2 newspapers until I said finally, why do I need the newspapers for? When I do my own research and all these different things. And so I went from the negativity to the positivity. But a lot of people, I have a friend of mine who still reads 3 to 4 newspapers every day. And I said, why do you read so many? He goes, I just want to get all the news. I said, how much of it is negative? He goes, most of it. I said, so why do you read it? He goes, I don't know. It's a habit. I said, oh, could you break it? Right. So what you're talking about, Michael, is breaking the habit, taking the mental vitamins, if you will, to sustain a better way of doing things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. So your website is going across the bottom. Everybody, you need to connect with Michael. He's such a giving soul. MichaelWoodsOnline.com. Can't get easier than that, right?
Pretty easy
MichaelWoodsOnline.com.
to remember, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super easy. And you need to pick up this book. And we talked about the cover, but one of the old sayings, if you will, is less is more. And this could have been a very busy looking book, the cover, but you kept it simple. And I love the positive color and the gentleman's jacket. Brilliant, because it draws you to 2. There's the positive. And everything else is the same color, right? It's a bluish color for the people who are working with umbrellas and all that. But the positive, both of them, is you have this subtle idea of these 2 connect, and you too can be positive. Whose idea was the color?
That was my wife. So
There
I
you go.
had some other dark colors in there. I said, hey, this is, and then I had some gold and red. I was trying to match my logo. I was like
Mm,
that branding was coming out. Oh, I got to match my logo. And
right, right.
so I give my wife most of the credit. She loved it. And is one thing that she said, and I believe it's all my heart, and a lot of people said the
Mm,
same thing. When you look at the book, you don't even really have to read it to know what it's about. I mean, it's just a few words, but instantly.
right away, right away. And we just a second ago talked about habits, right? So, what are 3 simple habits anyone can start with today to stay more positive?
Ooh, I love that question. Well, the first one is one of mine morning routines. Now, I start
Mm,
every single morning in a lot of different things, but when I first started my morning routine, the first thing I would say when I got up was an old Dale Carnegie quote: "Act enthusiastic, and you'll be enthusiastic." I would say
mm,
it 3 times, looking at myself. Then I would spend 5 minutes of visualizing the day. It's going to be a great day. So what you're doing, instead of looking at negative news right when you wake up or looking at whatever, you're setting that mindset. And number 2, throughout the day, put that mental stuff in. If you're riding in your car, as Zig Ziglar used to say, Automobile University, you can learn a lot of stuff, put that positive stuff in. And then the third thing, and this is the most important, and I've had a tough time with this most of my life, and that is true gratitude. Be thankful for
Mm.
what you have instead of what you don't have, because it can always be a lot worse. And that's, I think that's the most important way to stay positive is be grateful.
It's very interesting that you brought that up because that's how I start my day, but also that's how I end my day. I end
Mm,
in gratitude, and sometimes in the middle of the day, I'm in gratitude as well because I'll say, I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful to you, Michael, for staying connected with me, right? That we made this connection. We saw each other at the book signing in Philadelphia when we both became. What did we become?
world record breakers.
World record breakers. Yes, sir.
That was
And it
so
was
awesome.
an honor to meet you. Honor to meet you in person. But the real honor is staying connected to you, right?
Yes.
And staying positive during that connection. Because I believe that one of the most important things that you're doing for the world is sharing your story, sharing it through your book. And if anybody does not understand the value of reading a book that's just incredible, then you need to get this book. This book, I'm telling you, get it. Get it today. Read it. It's not a long read, but it's a definite worth read. And when you pick up this book, like I said, don't buy one. If you can afford it, buy how many? Five. If you can buy more, do so, and then share it with at least four other people. And do what I do, which is I sign my name on. I'm not the author, right? Michael, Michael was gracious enough to sign my book, right? So this book is going to stay with me forever. But when you sign it, let somebody know you're not the author, and then you say, please pass it once you've learned it, you got the concepts from it, and then pass it to somebody else, and then sign your name and put the date. Because giving is such a wonderful thing, and you're such a giver, Michael. And I
I
say
got a
that
whole
because
chapter on it. Hey, I got a whole chapter on it
I
in the book.
know you do. But here's the beautiful thing about that, and let's talk about that in a second. When I said in order for me to really do the show properly, I need to read the book, and you go, yeah, I'm going to send you the book. I never expected this huge box with all these goodies. I mean, literally, come on. Listen, I got a bunch of these that you sent. I got all this stuff you sent. I mean, it was over and over, and you're sending me all these things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I said, he's sending me a book. Why is this box so big? And I said, oh my goodness. So it just goes to show that when you're able to impact somebody, a tiny little gift, and this is not tiny, by the way, but it could be a little nothing, can impact another person. So talk to us about the giving that you actually definitely have in your book.
Yeah, one of the things most of my life, especially early on, I wasn't giving anybody anything. I grew up poor. When I finally started to have some success, I didn't mind spending money on myself. But when it come to other people, I just, I was holding on to it at a young age. Well, I read it, and I'll just be honest. I read a book about giving, about you
Mm,
will get it. If you give, you'll get it back in return. So I was doing it selfishly at first. I was like, I'm
mm,
going to test this out, and I would give stuff in my mid-20s, and I'm like, oh man, and it would just come back in weird places. I gave a $20 bill one time to that guy at the gas station that's run out of gas. His family's down the road. You seen that guy, right? Well, so I gave him a $20 bill, and my wife's like, "Why did you do this?" This is mid-20s years ago. And I was like, "Well, I'm going to test this book out I read." And the 20 was in my pocket the next day in the dryer. And it could have been just, hey, it could have, that happens to us. But
mm,
here's over time though, as I got older, I realized that it is far better to give than it is to get something. So I fell in love with giving things, whether it's money. And a lot of people say, I can't afford my rent. Well, that's great. I mean, that's not great, but you can give a
I get
smile. You can help somebody. If you're in the grocery store and you see a little old lady trying to reach something, just walk over there, help her, and smile. So we can all give, and when you start giving things, whether it be money or your time or a smile, it starts multiplying back. And as an older age that I am now, it is it's the best thing that I can possibly explain that makes me feel in my heart when you give something to somebody.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I do the same thing. That's why I think you and I are good tippers, right? Um, because a lot of times when I tip somebody, it's based on how they are treating us, right?
Mhm.
If we're at dinner or whatnot. And so when we talked about gratitude earlier, I found money right before I was entering the restaurant. And I looked around, I'm looking like, is this like a setup? Like they're gonna have me like pick up money and then they're gonna go, "Hey, you found money, what are you gonna give back?" And so I said, I walked into the restaurant, I asked for a table, and I put the money on the table. And I said, if anybody walks through the door and they're like, "Oh, I lost all my money," here you go, here's your money. That never happened. So I had an incredible meal. I was at a function by myself, and I gave the waiter really good tip because they were very generous
Mhm.
to me. Maybe they saw the money on the table. I don't know what it was, but they were just super nice, super friendly. And when I gave them a really good tip, because it wasn't my money to keep anyway, it was mine to pass forward.
That's
And
right.
so for me, that was gratitude, right? And when we understand gratitude, we can give it forward. We can pass it forward. The buck doesn't have to start. And literally, that was the buck, right? And the buck doesn't have to stop here, right? Um, it's an understanding that that becomes a habit. And you talked about habits also. That becomes a habit. And one of the things that when we give, we should never expect something in return because that's
That's right.
you're putting a cap on it.
That's right.
If I give you 20, I expect 20 back. You can give 20, you may get 2,000 back. You don't know, but you should give without expectation.
That's right. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I teach. That's what the chapter in the book. But at the very beginning, I guess God just said, "Well, I'm gonna go ahead. You're not giving for the right reason. You're testing this." And,
Mm,
and a couple times, every time it worked, and then I just fell in love with it. Then my heart got right. It wasn't
mm,
right first. I was just like, I'm gonna test this. And then when my heart was right, you're right. There's so many times that I'm
mm,
giving, whether it be my time or I help somebody when I didn't have time to help them. I'm like, man, I got this, that, but I took that time, and it was like whatever happened, you can always say, "Oh, there, I don't deserve this. I did it for," but you can. I'm glad you brought that up because it kind of sounded like that I did, but at first, that's what I did, and thank
mm.
goodness that uh, you know the universe showed it back, and so it's been a great habit of mine the last probably 25, 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't even think about it when you make gratitude a habit, when you make giving a habit. There's no thought. It's as you see somebody in need, you just go and help, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So much of it has to do with what we have in our heart. I also believe faith does not hurt in that aspect. And one of the things that you talked about is how did you get your mind right to be able to have these habits? And one of the things that I want to bring it up is your meditation because
Mm,
I meditate every single day, and I know you do too. So, can you share? It's in the book, and it's a big part of the book, and I
sure,
love that you have it in the book because that
absolutely.
helps you whether you are positive or not. The meditation actually helps guide you. Would you share that?
Absolutely. So about, I talk about being positive most of my life, and I have been. Even through some
Mm,
divorces and bad times, I was positive. But about 6 years ago, I fell, and I fell hard. I got negative
mm,
not long
mm,
ago, and it was because of some things. I'd gained a lot of weight. I needed hip surgery. I found out I was a diabetic. We bought a grocery store, my company, and we lost $1 million the first year.
mm,
See, I was even following
mm.
politics at that time. It was a terrible time in my life. But so I got my Zig Ziglar stuff back out because I knew better to do all that. I
Mm,
knew. So I started putting all the stuff back in, and I started Googling around, and something kept popping up, and it was meditation. I was like, "Oh,
mm,
I'm a Baptist from Southern Arkansas. That's Buddha and stuff like that." Which is nothing wrong with that, but I didn't see myself any part of that. But it kept coming up and coming up.
mm,
So then I read a book called Six Phase Meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. I highly encourage people to read that book. And so I started meditating. I tried it. It's visual meditation,
mm.
guided meditation. Sometimes I just sit. I'm a big follower of Bob Proctor.
Right.
And every morning, it started with 5 minutes. So if 5 minutes is all it took at first. And sometimes
Mm,
now, whether what's going on in my life, I could be there an hour. And I'm not, and there's scientific studies that back all this up. There's a Netflix show series about scientists studying what meditation does. I mean, I can't go into all I know is it works. I don't know. And so that one thing just changed my life. I mean, there's a lot of stuff did,
mm,
but if I miss a morning or two, I can tell I'm starting to get rigid or get fizzled. And I like, I didn't meditate this morning. There's a
mm.
saying that was floating around on Facebook, a meme that said, if you don't have time to meditate for 20 minutes every morning, then you need to start meditating for an hour every morning. Have you seen that? I love that. I shared that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so important." Meditation is. I'm glad you brought that up. I do it every day.
Yeah, I agree with you. But a lot of people don't understand what meditation's about. And meditation could be just when you're vacuuming the house,
Mhm.
just just thinking about things and focusing on what you're doing. Meditation could be when you're at the gym working out. So if you say you don't have time, you just don't know how to use your time,
Mhm.
right? And yes, there's something really powerful about shutting the lights. You don't have to sit in a lotus position because I teach meditation. You can just sit in any comfortable position and just think about it. Think about just your breath, right? One of the
Yes.
things I teach about motivation and meditation is imagine, and I'm just going to quickly share this with everybody because I know that you want everybody to meditate, and I love that part. But if imagine if you've never meditated in the past and you say, I want to start, here's a simple one. Imagine you in a room by yourself, and at the corner of the room, there's a little bowl. And the best colors are colors that are peaceful, like blue, green. Blue is probably the best color. There's a billion shades of blue, so you pick the color. And then with every breath that you breathe in, the ball gets closer to you. And when you breathe out, the ball goes away. And now you're only focused on that one ball in your breath. So now when your breath connects with the ball, you're meditating. And time will pass and you don't even know. So consider meditation on a daily basis, my friends.
That's awesome. One of the things I like to say about meditation, it lets you go faster but calm
Mhm.
through the day. It's really neat, and there's so we could do hours and hours on meditation. I think we both could.
So do me a favor. If you're listening now, if you're going to watch this later on the replay and so forth, do yourself a favor. Pick up the book. Take out your phone, because I know everybody in the world has a phone for the most part. Click on your camera, scan the QR code, and pick up a book. If you can only afford one, do so. This is what the cover looks like. If you think that you can get more than one, then use the QR code, get more than one, and do yourself a favor, share it with somebody who needs it. Because this is not just any book that you can share with another human being. This is a book that can lighten their life. There's so many great lessons that you teach here, Michael. I am just blessed that you wrote this book. And I think the world is blessed that you wrote this book. So thank you for writing this book.
Wow, thank
So
you.
let me ask you, Michael, I know we're wrapping it up, and I need people to, one, first of all, to connect with you, right? So go to michaelwoodsonline.com. And then the other thing is, what's next for you, Mike?
I get asked that question a lot, and I'm not sure. So one of the things I'm doing the next couple months is I'm speaking a lot around the country
Mm,
just about my book. I was in Detroit last week, Chicago the week before, Dallas. Um, I'm doing that a lot, and I'm going to do it for 3 months. I'm also
mm,
working on another book called The Lost Art of Customer Service.
mm.
And once I get finished with that, I may go back to, how I got here, the retail grocery business, and try to help help some folks in that business.
Wow, that's incredible. So in your book, you talk about how you started in the grocery. Do you have a good minute to share with us how that even started?
Well, yeah, I'll go as fast as I can because most people. So when you think of the lowest position in a grocery store, you immediately say a bagger. A sacker.
Mm,
I've asked audiences, I'll ask the question, what's the lowest? And they'll all say bagger. Well, I
mm,
started below a bagger. And they're like, what? What's below a bagger? So I'm trying to get a job at the grocery store because I had jobs in the summer, but I needed a job during school. So I'd have some money during school. And there was no bagger position available. He said that
mm,
but if you can work hard, the first bagger position opens, you can have that. And I'm like, man, what is it? He said, I need somebody to come in the store every day for 1 hour and clean up the meat department 7 days a week. It was a terrible
mm,
job. It was terrible.
mm,
And I thought to myself, well, I can outwork those guys, those sackers. And so that was my first position. So my first promotion in the grocery business was to a bagger. Think about
mm.
that. It's hilarious.
Literally from the ground up,
That
right?
was, and so I held all the management positions and was in a corporate. We had about 70 stores, and then 18 or 19 years ago, me and my boss decided to buy a few stores and start out on our own. So the last year I was there, which was a year before last, I left in October, but the last full year we run almost right at 50 million in sales.
Mm, that's incredible.
It
That's
was really
incredible.
neat.
Michael, I am excited for what's next to come with you because I know it's not going to be something that's not going to be impactful. I know that what you're doing next, especially you're writing your book about customer service. My God, that book needs to be out there. So
I feel
many
it.
people, and it needs to not just be in the U.S. It needs to be in all the different countries that do cover customer service, if you
Mhm.
will. So some of the worst experiences that people have with businesses are based on customer service. And that should be the enterprise, the connection between the customer and the business itself. So I can't wait to talk about that book and even read that book because it's going to teach me so much, and I look forward to it. Any last things you want to say to somebody before we wrap it up? And I know I cannot stress enough to so many people: scan the QR code,
Yeah, you
connect
know
with
what I
Michael.
want to say.
Michael is online, right? Go ahead.
So here's what I want to say. I say it to everybody. Go get my book. If the $20 is an issue, reach out to me. Send me your address. I'll send you $20.
Get out of town. What? I told you guys, this is not a regular human being. This is a giver, a giver, a giver. Here's the thing. Don't take advantage of a gift. If you do take him up on this offer, do yourself a favor. Don't be a scammer. Don't do that. Be genuine. Because when you're a scammer, you're not going to do well in life. You may do temporarily, but you won't do good in life, and maybe your health will suffer. Maybe your finances will be fine because you're scamming people. But maybe something is going to go bad in your life, and then you're going to wonder why. Just do good in the world, and good will come back. So if you take advantage of Michael's offer, do good with it. And if you can afford the book, come on now. Get more than one. Michael, once again, I'm going to share it up here. Here's the QR code, everybody. Here's the book. And there's a QR code. Do yourself a favor. Pick up the book. Read it. And here's the thing that I like to do with books. And I do that with a lot of the books that I read. I take another book and I write notes on it. So I take notes from the books I'm reading because the lessons, you have to internalize them. Otherwise, they're useless to you, right? Michael, great book. Thank you for the time today. I know we went over, but you are worth it, my friend. You're worth it.
It was my pleasure, man. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Everybody, do yourself a favor. Get the book. By the way, share this episode with somebody who needs to stay positive in a negative world, because we do live in that world. But the more of us that not only read the book, but start taking action from what's in the book, the better the world will be. So thank you again for joining us today, and share this episode with somebody who needs to see it. All right, Michael, thank you so much. To hang out for a minute, everybody else, have a blessed rest of.
Thank you for watching Author's Tales. Stay updated and meet new authors. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Sifu Rafael TV. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn, and visit our website. Your support means the world to us.